All right, so hello everybody. It's Monday night. I have the special guest on tonight. I'm pretty excited about this. As Laurel, how are you doing tonight, Laurel?
I am good. Thank you.
Good. So we had a big weekend this weekend. You came into town, and we had a lot of opportunity to talk through your community, and as well as make a video with Kent. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But for now, just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about who you are and what your community is.
Okay. Well, my name is Laurel Marr, and I am a death doula, also called end of life doula. I am building a doula training program with a theological foundation. It seems I am the first to do this, and I am very excited that I have Convene communities to give me the platform and help me with the ideas, because one of the things I found really difficult to navigate is a death doula is getting clients. That sounds a little bit extreme, but the reason is that it's such a new profession. I trained in 2019, the very end of 2019. 2020, we had the onset of COVID-19. I didn't have one client. The work can be done remotely. The problem is that, I'm one of the first people who trained, so no one knew what an end-of-life doula is. And when I lived in New York City, the knowledge around doulas was a little bit more prevalent, and I've moved to Virginia now, and no one knows what a doula is. So I've spent the last 6 months of my time in Virginia educating the community on what an end-of-life doula is and why you need one. And then I've met Matt and told him, this problem that I'm having. And with Convene Communities, I'm going to be able to not only train doulas, but help them get partnered with families and communities that need end-of-life doulas, particularly Christian end-of-life doulas.
So just real quick, in a short summary, explain to everybody that's on the call and that might watch this, what is a end-of-life doula? Because that is something that was, when I got on the first call, that was the first question that came out of my mouth is, what's a doula? I didn't know.
Right. Well, many people have heard the term doula associated with childbirth, birth doulas. Same concept of being a servant, being a helper, but now we're moving it from birth. We're moving it to the event of death, so end of life event. So what does a doula do? A doula is there to be a supporter in can to support a family, an individual, a community at end of life. Really, anything other than medicating a patient with the end of life drugs, anything else can be taken on by a doula. What I do when I work with families, one of the most important things that they like to do is a legacy project. How are we going to remember this person who's dying? That is a tool that can help an individual and a family handle death, right? Let's do a life review. What has this person achieved? What has this person loved? What do we want to remember about this person? It can help to bring some closure. There's a lot to celebrate in life. There's also a lot of sadness at death. And that is the next, as important role of a doula is how do we help families through the grieving process? Grief starts before death happens. Grief starts when someone gets a terminal illness. So walking through the grief process with the family through the death, helping them set up a death vigil. That is when the person is actively dying. It can take a couple days. After death, what does the family need? What kind of help does the family need in the way of planning a funeral?
Yeah.
Working with the church. After that, can I help with estate planning? Can I help them, start to get organized? What are the next steps? What do we do? What happens after death? So the sky's the limit. I even had one client that I shipped her cremated remains from America to South Africa.
Yeah. So let's talk about Angeline real quick, because and just one little aspect of it, and that was, she was around your age and she had an 8-year-old daughter. So just talk, when you're talking about that legacy project, talk about kind of what you guys did for her.
Right. Right. Most important to her was leaving videos for her daughter. Videos, they were just short, they were just a couple minutes long. Just Angeline holding the camera, talking to her daughter, telling her about some of the milestones she hasn't reached yet, what it's like. I won't be there for you, sweetheart, but this is what I want you to know, right? She talked with her about, growing up in America as a Black woman, things that the child would want her mother to talk with her about. So we made all sorts of videos, and those are available for her daughter when she's ready. The family has them when she's ready for them. And so that was really important with the legacy project. Now, for Angeline, the thought of leaving her daughter was really painful. And, we worked hard just to talk it out and to make amends with the ex-husband who would be caring for the child. So that is the kind of work we did. And we did all of that on her deathbed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so one of the things that's, I don't want to say interesting in that, is that, but she was given 30 days to live when you first started working with her. So touch on that, because you got to work, and when you got to really at work, she was at peace when she died, and talk a little bit about what day out of that 30 that was.
Right. She ended up dying 10 days later. And we had a list of things that needed to get done. And as a team, it wasn't just me and Angeline. I was hired by someone that employed Angeline as a house cleaner and nanny. There was several other women who were involved. So it was a team of women. I started asking questions on day one. Is this in place? What are we doing about this? What are we doing about this? I got an idea of what needed to be done. We got it done. We worked with the doctors to get it done. Just because we had to have so many people in the hospital room. It was still post-COVID, when you couldn't have any visitors, so visitations was very limited. So we worked hard. Everyone worked with us, and we got it done. We had a wonderful funeral for her. And her friend who hired me said to me that she believed that was a good death. And that was the goal. Was to give her the best death possible. And we did. We sat vigil with her as she was dying. And I think it was about 12 hours for her.
Yeah. And so that, you finished all the work on the 9th day, and, and she was at peace, which to me, I find just a very heartwarming, amazing story. So that's what a death doula does. So to let everybody know, so it's a little bit different than hospice, obviously. They're more on the medical side, but what Laurel does is, in a faith-based way, she comes in as a death doula. And to me, that's very perfect, because that for me personally, and everybody has their different thoughts, but faith comes in at the end of life. So, well, let's talk about Convene. Let's talk about what you're growing inside of Convene and how you are organizing it. And so, how when we first met, you really didn't have a place to put it. You had a website. You didn't even have any. If you went to the training page on your website, it said "coming soon." So start there.
That was in November, right? Yeah. I mean, we are here at January 30th. This is not an idea that I just thought up in 2019 when I started training. This is a vision that's been growing since 20. My son was born in 2007. He was a very young baby. So maybe 2008, 2009. And here we are entering in 2023. And I'm building out this vision. A lot has happened in my life since then. And I've trained as a death doula. I've led healing prayer ministries. I've worked in the church. I've led senior ministries, pastoral care ministries. I've even been to seminary. So I've developed this vision. I've developed the core of the curriculum through study and writing my thesis, and through experience of working with families, training as a death doula. And with Convene, I have a platform where I can store I can create my training program, store documents, connect all of my doulas together. I'm working on a component of the training program that teaches them how to have their own business and kind of be in charge of a whole state of in our country or in another country. If they're an international doula who's training with me, it's going to give them the ability to be a mentor and go out and find other doulas who are interested in being Christian, or other people who are interested in being Christian death doulas, bringing them onto my program. They will be managing them in a sense. And so it's allowing me to train. It's allowing me to foster doulas underneath me to kind of replicate my vision and my idea all over the world. And most importantly, once this is in place, it's hosting a place for churches, Christian communities, families to find these doulas that they can trust.
Yep. So let's break this down a little bit more. And so I'm going to ask you, I'll ask you questions and guide you through it, because we really worked through this pretty hard, which has been great. So first, your training group. So talk through your training group and your modules, how you have them structured.
Yes. Okay. Well, right now I have 2 modules in place. Those are both required to become a certified death doula with the Death and Resurrection Doula training program. The first one is a theological training program. That's module 1. It costs $400. You will take that that module. When you are finished with it, you will go on to the second module, which is the practitioner training module. So we will have the groundwork laid with the theological component of the training, and then we will move on to the practical part, which is, what do you do with patients, right? What can we do? What are our limits? How do we care for someone who is dying? How do we teach family members alongside with hospice to care? Where do we where do we come in and work with their Christian community, right? All of this, there's ethics that's involved. It's a real professional role, and everyone who comes in to take the program will be a certified professional at the end. And so that second module will also be $400. Whoever decides to continue on to the third module, they will, that will be like a private course basically with me. These first 2 modules, there's always ability to interact with me, to interact with the other doulas. There will be live classes. They'll also be recorded, because I'm aware not everyone will be able to make them at every time. I want to say one last thing before we go on to the next question about the theological training. What is the core of this curriculum? It's a theology of the cross. So we're looking at the God who came to us in the person of Jesus Christ, who lived the human life, died on the cross for the sins of each human, was raised from the dead. We're expecting Christ to return, raise the dead, right? So as Christian death doulas, we are going to be a part of an ongoing movement of reclaiming the narrative around death, but we're going to do it from the Christian perspective, that we are expecting Christ to return and raise the dead.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. I love it. And so they'll be again, those will be housed in a group, all 3 of those groups housed in a group. So you'll have a very active discussion board. And the way that your program is laid out, it is self-paced, but is really paced to have, for example, in your faith-based module there, it's 12 experiences, and it should go over a 6-week period. So the idea behind that, talk about that, about the 2, right? The 2 with a call, and all that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So, there's 12 experiences, and I'm thinking maybe they take 2 per week. They'll be taking 2 per week.
Yeah.
It may not go exactly that way, because some of them are a little bit more in depth than other ones. There is one that they have to write their story, right? We're learning to write our story, looking at our lives through the lens of the truth that we are justified by Jesus Christ, not by our own merit. That prepares that first. It helps them get to know themselves, who they are, their vocation as a death doula. Second, it also helps them prepare to listen to the stories of others. And so they will be going through these modules I think 4 of the modules I have selected that I will do a live teaching on that module or the experience. Some of the experiences are a little bit quicker. There's a video to watch, there's a chapter to read, and then there's a small presentation and a lesson learned. And where do doulas interact, like to show that they're receiving the content, assimilating it and giving it back to me so I can see that they are studying and that this is working, is through the lesson learned. They have through the experience. They have questions, they give answers to lesson learned after the presentation. They also follow up with what is their lesson learned from the experience. All of their answers available for the other people who are training to read.
Absolutely.
That's very important.
Yeah, and then at the end, last one, they have to take a test, right? For your training to be complete.
They will have to take a test. There's a summary experience at the very end, which will run back through all that we've learned in the other experiences and summarize it, and it's a test, but it's very basic. I just want to make sure that doulas, have the knowledge, the biblical knowledge that I am promising to communities that my trained doulas will have.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is cool, because I think what people see, and many have heard me talk about this, but the methodology, the learning methodology with adult learning theory that this is built on. I had a contract with Pacific Gas Electric a long time ago, and they went from a pretest where this is true story. They went from a pretest where they had a 60% pass rate to the post test where they had 100% pass rate. And that was over 500 people. So the methodology works, and that's how it's written. So, but that interaction is key. All right, so let's jump past that real quick, and let's go to your membership, right? Because it's more, it's not over. So now that you've completed the training, you may have decided to go on to the executive training with you to learn how to run your business, but then every doula will be a part of a membership group moving forward. So talk about that.
Yes. All right. Once doulas are certified, they will join a certified death doula group where they will have access to more of these discussion boards and blogging and continuing education. There will be a fee with this group. I haven't decided exactly what that will be at this time. Doulas have, whether they go on to the executive training program or whether they go, they decide not to do that. If they decide not to do that, or while they're in the executive training program, they will be employed by me. They'll be required to carry their own liability insurance, but they will be a subcontractor of this business and this community.
Yeah, so it really fits into the way everything is organized already. All right, so which is pretty cool. So now what we're talking about here is a franchise model, right? So now you have people in there, and like you talked about, then you have a state group, and then you have an international group, and this becomes your directory. And this is one of the things that you've talked to me a lot about, because it's missing out in the country. Like, where do you find doulas? How, where's that place for this is not just a community about training. This is a community about educating people on what a doula is, and then creating a directory, which I talk about all the time in these communities, creating a community where people can find the resources that they need. And you're creating that inside of this. Talk about that.
Right. Well, I think one of the important elements that's missing out in other doula training programs and the education that the country or the world is getting in the fact that they will benefit from having a doula is there's no regulation, right? How do you find a doula that you can trust? What should you look for in a doula? There are attempts out there to have some type of, it's called micro-credentialing, for making some sort of regulation, but there's a reason we're not regulated. We're not regulated because we don't want to be under insurance, meaning that we're then regulated. We can only work so many hours a week. And so this setup that we're doing, this opportunity for doulas to train and franchise, or for doulas to be employed under my business, gives them the opportunity to have customers who are waiting for them, who are ready for them, and they are educated, and they are expecting a specific thing, and they're going to get it from the doulas that they can hire through my site.
Yeah. And so you'll
That
have
answer
like,
the
for
question?
example,
I might have
well,
gone
you'll have
too far around.
you're creating a Virginia group right now. So you'll have people that are inside of Virginia. And let's just say, for the sake of the talking about it, let's say I become a death doula in North Carolina and I lead up North Carolina. Well, you might be in Charlottesville, Virginia, and somebody might be in the need of a death doula in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so you're going to be able to reach out to me and say, okay, we have somebody in that state, you can go find that death doula. So that referral process comes into play, which is going to be a great thing for you, because that, again, like you've talked about, that's something that's missing to build the states out. And now you have a subgroup, which is inside of your platform. And then you have states that are all subgroups and run, so people can go where their need is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So that's really awesome. I want to touch on one more thing. If anybody has any questions, let me know. But one more thing that is great is, well, two more things. You offer referral fees for your training?
Yes, I do. You want me to tell you a little bit more about that?
Please, because I think this is going to be important for people helping you grow. And this is part of the Convene platform that we spent some time on that we'll talk about in the next interview. But how can we help you grow?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of different ways. One is members of the Convene community can find my community within the Convene community, and they may have a friend who either needs a doula or would like to train as a doula, and they could refer them over to my community, share their personal link, and receive a referral from that. That's one way. I may have trained a doula who's leading, the southeast quadrant of her state, or maybe he's leading it, and they are making headway in their community, educating churches and community leaders on what doulas are, educating families, what you're facing with end of life in America at this time, how a doula can help you. Someone may say, I really feel called to serve. I want to become a doula. The person who has been educating can say, you know what, let me share this link with you. You can come sign on and start training tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kate got on the call right away and said that she had somebody that might be interested in your program, for example. And if Kate refers that person over, that's coming from Kate. So the ability to help each other grow is so important. And one more thing that I want to talk about, you talked about a legacy project, right?
Yes.
And you have not made this connection with Kent yet, who's on the call, but Kent makes beautiful videos. We all know that he's making. You and Josh came in this weekend, had your videos done. Other people have had their videos done or are having those videos done. So now you are going to be able to refer people over to Kent, because this is one of the things that he's extremely good at. And now you're going to be able to give him business and partner with him through the platform to grow. So talk about that a little bit.
All right. Well, I hadn't had I have talked to Kent today about my video, but not about this. But I've already put my personal link of his community in my training program, teaching doulas, where I'm teaching them about listening to stories of others, helping families form legacy projects. And I've seen Kent's work, and that I believe that he would be a wonderful person to contact. He could remotely create videos for families with photographs and letters that they've written before or after a death. It's never too late. A lot of doula work happens after deaths. I've been hired after death, right? It's never too late to make a legacy project. Mm-hmm. So Kent, I know from experience and from looking at Kent's work that he is going to be the first person I recommend. Yeah.
So there's two certainties in life. We're going to be born and we're going to die. And that's the facts. And so when it happens, it can turn into a positive, good experience. And that is the goal of what your community is. Now, how many people, you started this? This is amazing to me, everyone. If you're watching this, this is phenomenal to me. How many people have just found you in the last few weeks and reached out to you about doing your program or are interested in that sort of death doula and a faith-based concept in the last little bit?
just in the last couple of weeks, 4 to 5, right? And then I was thinking about it today, and I remembered that someone sent me a message on Facebook 2 years ago. I went and looked at it 2 years ago today, saying you're saying to me that I am one of the first Christian death doulas she's seen. Do I have any plans for making a training program? And I said, well, I'm actually in seminary. Yes, I do. So I reached out to her today and said, I know it's been 2 years, but if you didn't find another program, I'm ready to go. So our discussion was that she wasn't comfortable taking one of the other options because of the spiritual teachings they offer. They are very anti-Christian. And I said to her, well, I took one of the programs and I just, I listened, but I'm not going to go that direction. The rest of the training was very solid. But for her, she said, I'm Catholic and I'm not even comfortable entering into it. So there are going to be people who feel that way. And I hope and pray my program is a real relief.
Yeah. So people are reaching out. That's the positive thing. So really cool.
Are.
So listen, you're doing amazing things. I'm so excited about where you're at. I'm so excited about the community that you've created. I truly believe that when you talk about Convene and the franchise model, you are creating it. That's what it is. I like to think that I'm creating that model for everybody. And we spent a lot of time together, right? We've talked about this.
I'm about to say thank you when you're done.
And we're going to talk about this in the next video with Josh, but we spent a lot of time together going over this, and that's one of the great things. But you've truly created a model that is going to work for a lot of people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.